move.
Jax's revenge domain. Standing outside that loading dock in December cold, watching my breath fog up while corporate laughter echoed through the walls, I knew something had fundamentally changed. Not just about the deal, but about how I was going to handle the rest of my career. My name's Jason Crawford. I'm 48, been running security integration projects for 22 years, ever since I got out of the Navy. Those 6 years in service taught me a few things about leadership, honor, and what happens when chain of command breaks down. I'm not the guy who looks for problems where there aren't any, but I'm also not the guy who pretends everything's fine when it clearly isn't. For the past 8 months, I'd been working closely with Pinnacle Industries on what should have been the deal of my career. $22 million over 4 years, 35 sites across their regional footprint. Access control systems, camera networks, badge management, intrusion detection, the complete security package. In our industry, that's the kind of contract that sets up your retirement planning and keeps your team of 12 people busy and stable for years. The security integration business isn't glamorous, but it's critical. When someone's badge doesn't work at 3 a.m. and there's a server emergency, we're the ones who get called. When insurance auditors show up asking why camera coverage has blind spots, we're the ones with answers. When a disgruntled employee tries to access areas they shouldn't, our systems catch it. It's the kind of work that only gets noticed when it fails, which means doing it right the first time isn't optional. Ryan Coleman, their VP of Operations, had been my main contact. Guy in his mid-40s, MBA from somewhere impressive that he mentioned whenever possible. Always talked about partnership and collaboration. Jason, you're not just a vendor, he'd tell me on our calls. You're part of the solution here. I wanted to believe that because it made the work cleaner. When people see you as a partner, they share information. Earlier, they plan better, and they don't throw you under the bus when timelines get tight. The thing about the Navy is, you learn to read leadership pretty quickly. Good officers take care of their people and share credit. Bad ones take credit and share blame. Ryan had been feeling more like the former lately, including me in planning meetings, asking for my input on technical decisions, using my name instead of saying the contractor. It felt like respect, finally. We were in the final stretch. Master agreement already signed for their existing sites, but this expansion needed a separate statement of work. New scope, new timeline, new everything. My team's calendar was essentially built around this deal. Luis and his installation crew, Sarah handling project coordination, Mike running the technical side. Everyone knew this was the big one. Ryan knew it too. He'd been pushing hard for priority scheduling, reminding me how visible this project was to the board, to insurance carriers, to legal compliance. The pressure was supposed to motivate me to move faster. Then came the text on Wednesday afternoon. Jason, holiday party Friday. CEO wants to meet key partners. You should come. Relationships matter here. I stared at that message longer than I probably should have. Corporate parties aren't my favorite thing. I prefer the job site to the conference room. And I definitely prefer straight talk to cocktail small talk. Give me a technical discussion about fiber optic runs over small talk about golf handicaps any day. But Ryan had been including me in more strategic discussions lately, asking for my perspective on industry trends, even mentioning our work in his quarterly reports. It felt like progress. Friday evening, I finished a routine site inspection at one of their existing facilities, camera placement review, nothing complicated. Then headed home to get ready. Standing in my closet, I felt like I was choosing battle gear. I could have worn the one suit I own, navy blue from my brother's wedding 3 years ago, but it felt fake, like I was trying to become someone else just to be allowed in the room. Instead, I went with what I always wear when I need to look professional but functional. Clean dark jeans, boots that could handle a construction site if needed, navy quarter zip with our company logo embroidered small on the chest. No wrinkles, no stains, no apologies. I looked like the guy who actually builds what everyone else talks about in PowerPoint slides. The venue was one of those upscale country clubs designed to remind you that some people belong and others are just visiting. Warm lighting, polished hardwood, holiday decorations that probably cost more than my truck payment, valet parking, which I skipped. I'm not handing my keys to some kid who makes minimum wage. There was a check-in table near the main dining room with 2 women in black dresses handling badges and drink tickets. I walked up, smiled, gave my name. Jason Crawford, Northwind Security. One of them flipped through her printed list, finger moving down each page like she was hunting for a typo. Then she flipped to another page, then another. Her colleague leaned over to help look. "I'm not seeing you here," the first woman said, and her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maybe under Northwind Security?" I suggested. "That's my company name, been on every email, every proposal, every contract document." She didn't even check. Her eyes dropped to the logo on my chest like it confirmed something she'd already suspected. "Oh, you're with the vendor group." The way she said vendor made it sound like I'd shown up to fix a broken toilet. There was a tone there, a dismissal that made my Navy-trained spine stiffen slightly. "I'm here as Ryan Coleman's guest," I said, keeping my voice level. "He invited me personally." Her tone shifted into policy mode, crisp and final. "Vendors need to check in at the service entrance. You'll need to go around back." For a second, I honestly didn't understand. "Back?" She nodded toward a hallway like she'd delivered this exact routine all evening. "Service entrance. Security will direct you." That's when a security guard stepped over. Tall guy in a blazer with an earpiece, probably ex-military himself from his posture. Not hostile, not aggressive, just ready. Like his job was to prevent people like me from becoming an inconvenience for the real guests. "Sir," he said, calm and practiced, "service entrance is on the side of the building." I felt heat rise in my face. That clean, sharp humiliation you can't argue with because it's happening so politely. I could have pulled out my phone right there, called Ryan, made him come down and explain why his key partner was being directed to the loading dock. But I've been around corporate executives long enough to know what happens next. They apologize without really apologizing. They blame policy. They fix it for you personally, while acting like the real problem was your sensitivity, not their system. So I nodded once. No problem. I walked away from the warmth and the small talk, past a hallway that smelled like expensive cologne and prime rib, and out through a side door into the December night. The cold hit hard, metallic and sharp. Inside, I could hear bass thumping through the walls like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I followed the building around, past executive parking spaces with luxury cars I could probably afford but would never buy, past a dumpster, to a loading dock with a single fluorescent light and a metal door. No welcome table, no holiday decorations, just a cigarette disposal bin and a security camera pointed down at me like an accusation. Standing there in the cold, listening to muffled laughter through the wall, I realized something I didn't want to admit. This wasn't a mistake. This was exactly where they thought I belonged. I stood there for maybe 3 minutes, watching my breath fog in the air while expensive cars sat under warm parking lights. Through the walls, I could hear the party continuing. Clinking glasses, polite laughter, the kind of networking that happens over appetizers and wine. The loading dock had a clear view of the executive parking area, BMWs, Mercedes, a couple of Audis. Ryan's silver Lexus was right there, close to the door, probably in a reserved spot. The security camera above me had a little red light blinking steadily, recording everything, recording me standing here like I was supposed to be grateful for the privilege of freezing my ass off outside their party. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't some mix-up at the check-in table, this was deliberate. I walked back to my truck, a 3-year-old F-150, reliable and paid for, and drove home. No dramatic engine revving, no squealing tires, just a man leaving a situation that had become clear. Halfway there, sitting at a red light, my phone buzzed with a text. Ryan's name popped up on the screen. I glanced at it and felt something twist in my stomach. "Hey, where'd you disappear to?" "CEO wants a photo with key partners. Not what happened or let me find you. Just casual confusion, like I'd wandered off between appetizers to take a phone call. He didn't ask if I got inside. He didn't mention the service entrance. He wrote it like I'd left voluntarily, like I was somewhere in the building playing hard to get." I didn't reply, just drove the rest of the way home, pulled into my driveway, and sat in the cab for a moment. My house looked exactly like it always did. Small, neat, paid off early thanks to Navy discipline and 22 years of steady work. No mansion, no gate, but it was mine. The porch light was on, same as every night, welcoming me back from whatever corporate nonsense had filled the day. Inside, I poured a glass of water and tried to process what had just happened. The check-in woman's tone, the security guard's practiced routine, the loading dock camera, the executive parking spaces I'd never be invited to use. It all fit together in a way that made me feel naive for not seeing it sooner. My phone buzzed again. Email notification. I'd been copied on a procurement thread about Monday's final contract review. Usually this stuff was routine. Calendar confirmations, agenda updates, polite corporate language that nobody really reads because the real decisions happen in private conversations. This one was different. Subject line, vendor attendance, final list. I opened it with the kind of dread you get when you know you're about to confirm something you don't want to believe. Short thread, maybe 4 emails total, but buried in the second message, sent that afternoon around 3 p.m. was this. Ryan Coleman, do not badge Northwind tonight. Service entrance only. We don't need contractors in leadership photos. I stared at those words for a full 30 seconds, read them twice, then a third time. The check-in woman hadn't been improvising. The security guard hadn't been following generic policy. They were executing Ryan's specific instructions, sent hours before I'd even left my house to get ready. He'd invited me so he could say I was included. Then he'd blocked me so I wouldn't be visible in the photos that would go to the board, to investors, to whoever else mattered in Ryan's world. He wanted me available but not seen, present but not acknowledged. I set the phone down and leaned both hands on my kitchen counter. The anger didn't come out as fire. It came as something colder, more calculating. In the Navy, we called it tactical thinking. When someone shows you exactly who they are, you don't get emotional about it. You adjust your strategy accordingly. I thought about Luis, my lead installer, who'd been asking about the Pinnacle expansion for weeks. He had twin daughters starting college next year. Sarah, my project coordinator, just bought her first house, partly because she knew this deal would keep us busy through 2029. Mike, my technical lead, had turned down 2 other job offers because he believed in what we were building with Pinnacle. All of them trusted me to handle the business side so they could focus on the technical work they loved. All of them deserved better than being treated like disposable contractors by someone who saw them as props in his corporate theater. My phone buzzed a third time. Another text from Ryan, this one shorter and more demanding. Jason, CEO is asking for you. Where are you? I almost laughed. Almost. He was still playing the game, still pretending I was somewhere in that building, maybe in the bathroom, or taking a work call. Still maintaining the fiction that his key partner was simply being elusive. Instead of replying, I opened my laptop and pulled up the draft email I'd created earlier in the week. Not because I was planning drama, but because 22 years in business teaches you to prepare for people who use charm as a weapon. You draft the resignation letter before you need it. You outline the contract termination before the relationship sours. You prepare for the moment when someone's true character shows itself. The draft was clean, professional, final. Subject: withdrawal from expansion. SO, effective immediately. 3 paragraphs. No accusations, no emotional language, just business reality stated as fact. I'd learned this approach in the service. When you need to deliver bad news up the chain, you make it impossible to argue with and easy to understand. But I didn't send it yet. Not because I was having second thoughts, but because I wanted to sleep on it. Give Ryan one last chance to surprise me. Maybe he'd call Saturday morning with an explanation. Maybe he'd admit it was a mistake and figure out how to make it right. Saturday morning at 8:15, my phone rang. But it wasn't Ryan. It was Rachel Thompson, Pinnacle's CFO. CFOs don't call you on weekend mornings unless they're about to save you or bury you. There's no middle ground with that particular conversation. Jason, she said, careful and measured. I'm hearing there was an issue at the party last night. Not an issue, I replied, setting my coffee cup down slowly. A decision. There was a pause on her end. Short but real, like she hadn't expected me to be that direct. Ryan says you arrived inappropriately dressed and became difficult about building protocols. I let the silence stretch until she felt it. Then I said, Rachel, I was wearing clean jeans and a company polo. I gave my name at check-in. Your staff directed me to the service entrance. I complied without argument, then left. Another pause, longer this time. Do you have documentation of what you're claiming? Yes. Ryan's email to procurement, instructing them not to badge us. The silence on her end was different now, heavier. In that quiet, I could hear the moment her internal story started to change. Because if she hadn't seen that email before our conversation, she was starting to see Ryan Coleman very differently. Forward it to me, she said. I will, I said. But before I do, Rachel, you need to understand something. This isn't about a photo opportunity. This is about what it means for Monday's meeting and for my team. Her voice softened slightly. Not friendly, but careful. Jason, we value your partnership here. Value isn't a word, I cut in, keeping my tone level. It's behavior. And last night's behavior told me everything I need to know about how Pinnacle sees contractors when the cameras are rolling. There was another pause. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted into executive mode, the tone people use when they're trying to contain damage before it spreads. Are you planning to walk away from the expansion? I looked across my kitchen table at my laptop, at that draft withdrawal email sitting in my outbox like a loaded weapon. I could feel the weight of the numbers, $22 million over 4 years, 12 people counting on steady work, my own retirement planning built around this deal's success, but I could also feel the weight of that loading dock. And once you've seen exactly where someone puts you, when it's convenient for their image, it's hard to pretend you didn't see it. Yes, I said. Unless something changes materially. Jason, Rachel said, and her voice dropped lower. Ryan is well connected politically here. He has relationships with board members, with our parent company. This could get complicated for you. I'm not politically connected, I replied. I'm operationally connected. I'm the guy who keeps your buildings from becoming insurance liabilities. That's what actually matters when the lawyers start asking questions. She couldn't argue with that. Send me the email. I'll handle this internally. I forwarded her the procurement thread, the one with Ryan's instructions about keeping contractors out of photos. Then I sent her one more thing, the Monday calendar invite Ryan had created for our final contract review. The attendee list included Ryan, legal, procurement, CFO, and me. In the notes section, Ryan had typed, key partner presentation, full stakeholder alignment. 2 versions of me, one for the boardroom meeting where they needed my expertise, one for the social photos where they needed to look important. After I hit send, my phone stayed quiet for exactly 4 minutes. Then it exploded. First, a text from Ryan. Short, aggressive, like he'd just been told something he didn't want to hear. Jason, what the hell are you doing? I've got Rachel breathing down my neck about some email. Stop making this bigger than it needs to be. I didn't reply. 2 minutes later, another text. Call me, now. We need to talk before this gets out of hand. Still didn't reply. Then came the one that told me everything I needed to know about Ryan Coleman's character. You're making a huge mistake. I've got friends in this industry. Don't burn bridges you can't rebuild. That was it. Not sorry. Not let me explain. Not I mishandled this. Just threats, delivered through a phone screen like he was still in control of the conversation. I screenshot that last text and forwarded it to Rachel with a single line. This is the leadership style my team would be working under. My phone rang 20 minutes later, Rachel again. Jason, before this escalates any further, our CEO wants to speak with you directly. Michelle Turner, can you do a video call this afternoon, say 2 p.m.? I'd never spoken to Michelle Turner directly. She was the kind of executive who operated 3 levels above my usual interactions, the kind who probably knew my company name but not my face. The fact that she wanted to talk personally meant this had already gone further up the food chain than Ryan expected. Send the invite, I said. The call started at exactly 2 p.m. 3 faces on my screen. Rachel, looking tense, a corporate lawyer I didn't recognize, taking notes, and Michelle Turner herself. Mid-50s, gray hair and a precise cut, the kind of calm that comes from making decisions that affect thousands of people. Michelle didn't waste time on pleasantries. Jason, I've read Ryan's email to procurement about last night. I want your account of what happened, from the moment you arrived. I gave it to her clean and chronological. Check-in table, vendor designation, service entrance direction, loading dock, departure, no editorial comments, no emotional language, just facts delivered like an incident report. Did you attempt to contact Mr. Coleman while you were at the venue? The lawyer asked. No, I didn't want to create a scene in front of your other guests. After you left, did you communicate with him? He texted me twice that evening, then again this morning. He seemed confused about why I'd left. Michelle's eyes narrowed slightly. What did those messages say? I summarized without reading them word for word. Friday night's confusion about my departure. Saturday morning's demand to call him. Then the threats about industry connections and burning bridges. Did Mr. Coleman offer any concessions to retain your participation in the expansion? He offered a rate reduction yesterday. Then he implied I was making enemies by pursuing this. Rachel's head turned slightly toward Michelle. That was the first visible crack in their unified front. Then Michelle asked the question that mattered. Jason, is there anything we can do to keep this expansion moving forward with your team? That's where most people would negotiate. Public apology, written commitments, Ryan's removal from the project, better contract terms, all reasonable requests that a reasonable company might accept. But I'd been thinking about this since the loading dock. The problem wasn't Ryan personally. The problem was a corporate culture that felt comfortable treating contractors like interchangeable parts when it suited their image, then expecting loyalty and quality work when they needed results. This isn't about price, I said, and it isn't about personalities. It's about partnership. If Ryan felt comfortable instructing staff to exclude us from photos while expecting us to execute critical work, what happens when schedules slip? What happens when insurance auditors ask hard questions? My team becomes the convenient scapegoat. If Ryan were removed from project oversight, would you reconsider? The fork in the road. I could take the win, let them handle him internally, keep the $22 million deal, and move forward. But I thought about Luis again, about Sarah, about Mike, about all the other contractors who'd been directed to service entrances over the years, who'd accepted it because they needed the work, about the message it would send if I took their money after they'd shown me exactly how they saw people like us. I won't reconsider, I said, keeping my voice steady. Not because I'm being emotional, but because I'm being realistic. This company has shown me how it treats contractors when nobody important is watching. I won't put my people in that environment. Michelle didn't argue. She didn't threaten. She didn't try to charm me back into the deal. She just sat back in her chair and nodded once. Understood, she said. Our legal team will send formal acknowledgement of your withdrawal and confirm transition obligations under the existing master agreement. We're not asserting breach on current contracts, the lawyer added quickly. This addresses only the expansion SOW. The legal threat from Ryan's earlier posturing was dissolving in real time. The CEO didn't want a vendor dispute dragging on. She wanted the bleeding to stop. We'll cooperate on any reasonable transition requirements, I said. Michelle's expression softened slightly. Not friendly, but respectful. Thank you, Jason. I'm sorry this situation occurred. The call ended. My screen went dark. And for the first time since Friday night, I felt like I could breathe normally. My phone buzzed 30 seconds after the CEO call ended. Text from Ryan, and I could practically feel the panic through the screen. Jason, what did you just do? I'm getting calls from upstairs. This is insane over a simple misunderstanding. Still calling it a misunderstanding, still not getting it. I deleted the message without responding. 5 minutes later, Rachel Thompson emailed me directly. No procurement team, no legal department, just her. Subject, immediate update. One sentence in the body. Ryan Coleman has been placed on administrative leave pending internal review. You will not hear from him again. That was my first taste of satisfaction. Not revenge, not triumph. Relief. I didn't have to fight him anymore. I didn't have to expose him to the entire company. His own email trail did what documentation always does when the right people finally pay attention. It turned charm into evidence. But the chaos at Pinnacle was just getting started. They still had 35 sites waiting for security upgrades. They still had board commitments and insurance requirements. They still had deadlines that didn't care about corporate politics. And now they had a Ryan Coleman-sized hole in their project management. The next email made that reality crystal clear. It came from Pinnacle's risk management department, copying legal and the CFO. Subject, carrier escalation. Coverage review required. I opened it and finally understood what Ryan had really been doing for months. He wasn't just trying to treat me like a partner while keeping me invisible. He was using my team's work as cover for how close Pinnacle was to losing their insurance certification. The carrier required security upgrade completion by specific dates. Missed those deadlines, and Pinnacle faced premium increases, coverage exclusions, and potential liability exposure that could cost them millions. Ryan had been desperate. He needed my expertise and my team's speed, but he also needed to look like he was in control to his superiors. So he created this theater where I was essential but not acknowledged, critical but not visible. Now that my team was out, the timeline was impossible, and everybody knew it. That weekend, 3 different Pinnacle departments called me. Different people, same underlying panic. Procurement asked if we'd reconsider for better rates. Risk management asked if we could at least maintain the existing schedule for current sites. Legal asked for clarification on transition obligations, carefully avoiding the word breach. Same answer to all of them. We'll support transition under our existing master agreement. We will not execute the expansion. No emotion, no lectures, no detailed explanations, just a boundary, repeated like company policy, because that's what it had become. Monday morning, my office felt different, lighter, somehow. Luis walked into my office with his usual coffee and clipboard, but he was grinning. "Heard you fired a client this weekend," he said. "Word travels fast, Sarah told me. Said you walked away from the big one." He leaned against the doorframe. "Pinnacle treating people weird again?" I looked at him and realized something important. My crew already knew, maybe not the details, but they'd felt it. People who work with their hands feel disrespect like weather. They can sense it building before the people in suits admit there's a storm coming. "Yeah," I said, "they were." Luis nodded. "Good. That place had bad energy. Mike said their security guards always acted like we were going to steal something." "You're okay with losing the work?" He shrugged. "There's always more work for people who do it right. You taught me that." That afternoon, something interesting happened. My phone rang, and the caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. When I answered, the voice was familiar. Tom Bradley, security director for Pinnacle's biggest regional competitor, a company called Atlantic Industries. "Jason?" "Tom Bradley. We met at the Security Expo last spring. I hear you might have some availability coming up." Word was already spreading through industry networks. People talk, especially when a well-known contractor walks away from a major deal. In our business, reputation moves faster than contracts. "Might," I said carefully. "We're expanding into 3 new states, 38 sites over the next 4 years. Similar scope to what you were doing with Pinnacle, but we actually treat our contractors like partners. Interested in a conversation?" The irony was perfect. Atlantic had been competing with Pinnacle for regional dominance for years. Now they were offering me essentially the same deal that Ryan Coleman had just blown up with his parking lot politics. "Send me the details," I said. 2 weeks later, I signed with Atlantic Industries. $21 million over 4 years, 38 sites, better payment terms, and something Pinnacle never offered: respect. On kickoff day, Atlantic's CEO met me in their lobby personally. No badge table confusion, no service entrance directions. He shook my hand and said, "We're glad you're here. I hear you're the guy who tells the truth early and often, only way I know how," I replied. Meanwhile, Pinnacle's replacement vendor was exactly what you'd expect: a national firm that promised fast deployments using local subcontractors. They looked great in presentations, polished account managers, corporate headquarters, the kind of vendor you could put in annual reports without worrying about work boots in the photos. But they were expensive, and worse, they were sloppy. Their project managers changed every few months. Their subcontractors had high turnover. Quality control was inconsistent. The expansion that Ryan had promised would be complete by March was still dragging into July, with change orders and delays piling up like snow. I heard through industry connections that Pinnacle's insurance premiums doubled, that their board started asking uncomfortable questions about project management, that several other contractors quietly walked away from smaller deals rather than deal with similar treatment. 3 months after the loading dock incident, I got another email from Michelle Turner, the CEO. Shorter this time, more direct. She apologized again, but with more specificity this time. Said Ryan was no longer with the company, not on leave, gone. Said the incident had triggered an internal review of how they treated contractors and vendors. Said they'd implemented new protocols for corporate events and project management. Then she asked, carefully and without pressure, if I'd ever consider working with Pinnacle again under new leadership. I read it twice and felt nothing sharp. No urge to settle scores, no urge to rub salt in wounds, just clear understanding that some doors close for good reasons. I replied with 1 paragraph, thanked her for the honesty, said I respected how she'd handled the situation once she had the facts, confirmed that we wished them well, but we were fully committed to Atlantic Industries for the foreseeable future. That same week, I was in Atlantic's headquarters for a quarterly review. Walking back to my truck, I caught my reflection in their glass lobby doors. Dark jeans, boots, company polo with the Northwind Security logo. Same outfit I'd worn to that country club party, same professional appearance. Different outcome entirely. because the difference was never about the clothes or the venue or even the money. It was about the line I finally learned to draw. They sent me outside like I didn't matter, so I made one decision that proved I did. And the best part? I didn't have to burn anything down to do it. I just stopped holding up a roof that wasn't built to respect the people underneath it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away with your head held high. The loading dock taught me that.